Michigan has just passed legislation to dissolve the 3-member boards that approve the concealed pistol licenses across the state of Michigan. These boards were the last stop before customers could get their hands on one of those CPL licenses before they could get a gun. The law marks a legislative victory for gun rights advocates who say the board indiscriminately rejected gun-seeking applicants unfairly. Jose, one problem with this board in 2013-2014, that year, rejected 350 applicants, and the people that they're rejecting are people that fall through the cracks. So people with a diagnosed mental illness, that might have gone unchecked, or people with a history of domestic violence. And without that board, they're one of the last states in the country. They've had this for 90 years. They're dissolving it. It makes it that much easier for somebody who shouldn't have a gun to get one.
Yeah, I mean, we see that these safeguards for the population that might in paper qualify to own a concealed weapon permit, there is this group that after a personal interview, they further look into your history and they decide if you are allowed to buy it or not. And now we're dissolving them. So these people that mostly are domestic abusers, that are drug addicts, that are alcoholics, that should be prevented of having a weapon if they're going to act irrational or act upon certain things. I think it makes sense. How come are they going to be able to do so?
Well, this board, so they would be able to do a face-to-face interview with somebody who's applying for a gun license, and they would be able to determine something that a criminal background check wouldn't show. So if somebody has a noticeable mental illness or history of mental illness, it would come, up in that board. And these aren't random boards either. They're people that are, former law enforcement officials, medical personnel. They're very equipped to decipher and judge, whom should be having weapons and whom shouldn't. But at the same time, Second Amendment supporters are saying, this is unfair, it's unconstitutional. You're keeping us from a Second Amendment right to bear arms, and in fact, it's just another check. This is what one expert had to say in this, and his name is Jerry Walden of the Physicians for Prevention of Gun Violence. He also is living in the state of Michigan. He says examples of those denied licenses include juveniles with serious records, domestic abusers with misdemeanors or no felonies because their victim would not go to court, serious alcoholics and drug abusers who would all be free to obtain a CPL under this new law. So he's talking about people like the man that shot up that clinic a couple of days ago. Had there been a board in place checking his ability to obtain that gun legally, we might not have seen a shooting.
As many cases that we've seen in the past of mass shooters and people that engage in mass killings, where if a very simple background check, a more detailed background check, a more personal background check, something like what these commissions are able to do will have prevented the death of many innocents. And now we see that the pressure and the lobbying of the NRA and these conservative groups that try to push ownership as a freedom instead of as a responsibility, of even a luxury of having a weapon, because that for me is very important to understand. Those who own a weapon, they think it's their right to own a weapon. It's their right based on the Constitution.
Right.
It's a legal right, but at the same time, it's our right to stay safe in case of a person without the mental stability gets their hand on a gun and commits an act of crime like the one we just saw in Planned Parenthood.
Well, devil's advocate to that argument, I was looking for images for the story, and one popped up of a sign welcoming people to Michigan, and it actually said, beware terrorist. I'm paraphrasing it, but anybody that's rogue in this state, a lot of our citizens are in fact armed. So it's just like they want people to know that they actually are packing in this state. They have a lot of hunters, it's a massive hunting state, and a lot of people in the state of Michigan they have concealed weapons permits, they're packing, and the state is advertising it.
I mean, it's part of this rhetoric that we've seen about free to own every gun and all the guns, and also the idea that people will take care of the security of the country. If more people were armed in this country, the country will be safer. And the numbers are there. The numbers show clearly that that's a lie and that's false, and it does not have a correlation in between the number of concealed weapons carried and the prevention of crime.
Well, under this new change, county clerks and state police will now assume the responsibility for that application process. This takes effect today. Those boards are dissolved and another safeguard removed for gun control within the state of Michigan.